out from the wreckage. Can't make the same mistake this time. We are the children, last generation. We are the ones they left behind. And I wonder when we are ever gonna change. Living under the fear till nothing else remains. We don't need another hero. We don't need to know the way home. All we want is life beyond. Looking for something we can rely on. There's got to be something better out there. Love and compassion. That day is coming. All else are castles built in the air. And I wonder when we are ever gonna change. Living under the fear till nothing else remains. All the children say we don't need another hero. We don't need to know the way home. All we want is life beyond. So what do we do in our lives? We leave all things alone. We let our story shine like a light. Or is this the dark? Is it all or nothing? We don't need another hero. We don't need to know the way home. All we want is life beyond Thunderdome. All the children say we don't need another hero. We don't need another hero. We don't need to know the way home. All we want is life beyond Thunderdome.
Okay, there we are. The agenda. This is the special apocalypse edition of the agenda. You know, my phone's going to make all kinds of noise. Just ignore it. Just give me a second here. Get things going. I'm going to have to explain my attire too, because that's going to draw some questions from some people. Probably my Christian followers. Most of the other people won't even notice. But I'm always having to explain myself to my Christian followers. And it's okay. It's okay. I understand. Oops, wrong button. I gotta make sure I push the right button. So, yes, I told everybody. Give me a second here. I'm gonna shut this stupid phone up. There we go. No more noisy phone. Okay, it's really hard advertising. It seems that when I advertise on Facebook, anything that refers to like anything off-site is throttled or something. Like, I don't know like what it is, but it doesn't get much exposure. It can be something like a really important announcement, and I link to something that's got like a video or something, and I get like no responses, nothing. So I don't know. But we'll wait and see if we can get some people on board here. Explain my attire. What's happening here is I told people that I was going to start going heavy on the chains, heavy on the eye makeup. Let's see if you can see this. Can you see my eye makeup? Can you see? Can you see my eye makeup? So I was going to go heavy on the eye makeup, heavy on the chains, heavy on the spikes. And I was going to go heavy on the leather. And the only, all kind of from, they're all from what my Christians might call my bad old days. So they're a little short, but I'll try to keep it as down low as possible so I don't put on any free shows and change this from PG to R and lose a lot of followers in the process. See if anybody comes to join us, Dorian. You may be the only one today. Just me and Dorian. Just me and Dorian and the mirror. Lots of groovy stuff going on now with the world falling apart. There's not a whole lot of sanity going on out there right now, though. This is the problem. I should adjust my camera. That's not what I wanted to do. I don't know why my camera does that. Let's move up a notch here. There. That's better. So, isn't that interesting? Okay, what we're going to do, let a few people know. Adam Blaney is telling me that society is dead. Society is dead. Well, it may be close. It may be close. Okay, now I've got 0 viewers, so I'm talking to myself, apparently, unless it's lying to me. Let's just go see what it says. Let's mute that tab, mute site. Okay, let's go to my page. I'm just killing time here, people, till maybe I can get some viewers on board. If not, they'll have to catch it in replay. One watching, yeah. Wow. Think of my 1,100 plus subscribers. I might get more than one. But apparently it's just one. It's just me, and it's like a chat. I should just like Skype chat or something. Get about as big an audience. Anyway, I'm not going to worry about that because things are not always as they seem. I think maybe they did there, Adam. You missed my explanation about my skirt. I was apologizing for my skirt because I wanted to go all leather today to capture my mood, and the only leather skirts I have are a little on the short side from when I was in my bad old days. So, but it's not too terribly short, so I'll try to keep it down so as not to offend anybody. That's what's with that. Yeah, good work. Let's share it and see if anybody comes on board, because we've got some interesting and I would say important stuff to talk about. Because right now, I would say that people who 2 weeks ago were kind of clued in, insane, have just lost their minds. Okay, they've gone nuts. Pew, gone. Just like that. It was just so easy. It's like the Wizard of Oz just pulled one of them switches and everybody went crazy, right? And they started cheering on the apocalypse. Bring on the apocalypse, they say. Yeah, we got to save Granny. So we got to bring on the apocalypse, trash the economy, clear the store shelves, and save Granny. Okay, so I saw Granny in the grocery store yesterday, actually. Granny, who we're trying to save. I saw Granny in the grocery store, and she was very distressed because she was going through the aisle and she was looking at the shelves, and the shelves were all empty. And she looked up at me and she said, I can't find anything that I'm looking for. Everything's gone. So there you go. There you go, y'all. You've saved Granny, right? You've saved Granny from the flu or whatever it is. She can't buy any food. Oh, well. Man. So, yeah, we need to talk about this because strangely, about 2 weeks ago, most of my followers were still sane. Okay. Most of my followers understood that the government was full of jackals and hyenas and liars and sociopaths and psychopaths. Everybody kind of knew that 2 weeks ago about our government. Okay. They knew that the pharmaceutical establishment was the only thing worse than the government, right? Even like mainly psychopaths, people who don't care about anything profit, right? So 2 weeks ago, everybody understood that. But then somebody pulled that switch. You know, everybody's gone. Suddenly, I'm the evil one, right? I'm the bad person. I'm the bad trans. It reminds me of the scene from Scarface, you know. You know that scene in Scarface where he's in the restaurant and people are staring at him because he's a little tipsy and saying bad things. So I'm going to paraphrase on that. Everybody take a good look. Take a good look because you're never going to see such a bad trans again. That's right. I'm the bad trans. But you people need trans like me. So you can point your fingers and say, look, there's the bad trans. That's me. The bad trans. Anyway, I'm in one of those moods today. So everybody has now flipped. And if you're not with the government line, if you're not understanding that the pharmaceutical companies are working right now to save us, to save Granny, to save our children, and save us all, they're going to be the heroes of the day. If you don't recognize that, then you are the devil. Strangely, I have this funny notion. Call me crazy. Just call me absolutely nuts. But I think all these psychopaths and sociopaths and liars that were in government 2 weeks ago and in the pharmaceutical companies 2 weeks ago, well, they're all still there. This is my crazy idea. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's all good guys now. Maybe all Darth Vaders have been moved aside and it's all full of Ben Kenobis and Jen Kenobis. Maybe. I don't know. But I'll tell you what I think is funny. Okay, so everybody's saying that the government's doing all of these measures, right? They're going to shut down all these businesses. One of which I work in that's involved in the supply chain, okay? Getting critical supplies that people need to people. And so what is my employer doing to comply with the government? Well, they're laying off half the damn workforce. Talking about maybe laying me off for a period of time too. Just going to shut down the whole supply chain. Yeah. And then what's going to happen is, well, we've already seen kind of what's happening. The shelves are emptying. Okay. So the shelves are emptying in the stores. They're laying off supply chain people like me. Well, what do you think that's going to do? How do you think Granny's going to fare? Okay, so people need to understand a few things. Hi. So all of the jackals in government and pharmaceutical industry are still there. okay? And they still don't give a shit about you or Granny or your children, okay? People telling me how all these measures are going to save Granny and how they love Granny so much. Well, strangely, I live in a country where we've passed some legislation and set up a program here where I live that's called MAID, Medical Assistance in Dying. Okay, and what that program does is it kills grannies. Kills grannies en masse, right? Just killing them left, right, and center. Get rid of all these grannies because they're just too much of a burden on the system. Even some young people getting snapped up in this MAID net, right? Okay, so these same people who brought in and are encouraging medical assistance in dying for grannies are now supposed to be apparently doing all of this, you know, locking down society, crashing the economy because they care so much about keeping Granny alive. The people that 2 weeks ago were followers of mine, okay? Now they think I'm the devil because I say government and big pharma doesn't give a shit about Granny, okay? They don't give a shit about you, okay? The only thing that's a reasonably safe assumption in our society is to assume that the government and big pharma are lying to you and that they got some sort of nefarious agenda up their sleeve. Oh, but, you know, the ever so honest and reliable mainstream media is putting out all of this stuff about the epidemic that's wiping out everybody in Italy. What was it at last count? 2,500 people had died in Italy. Well, let's just take a look at some of the numbers here. Let's see if I can find some of this. Let's go on because I've been posting stuff that a lot of people have been ignoring and has been making a lot of people really angry. But just give me a second here. I'll bring it up. Got it here. Been posting some of my angry music too. Anybody see the angry music I was posting? My roots are showing there. There was a period in my life when I was even angrier than I am now. I mean, really, actually, when you take me out of a political environment, I'm really just a, you know, I'm a teddy bear, right? I'm just a gentle, kind, humorous, fun-loving person. Put me in a political environment and I get nasty. But let me just get some of these stats here that people just don't like to see. Get close. Bear with me here. Like I say, anybody wants to come on cam with me, I posted the link. Here we go. Okay, my computer's a little slow because I think the government's hacking my computer. Let's see if I can bring this up. There it goes, but that's not going to work. Can't go full screen like that, I don't think. It's the killer Coke. It's going to get me. It's going to get me before the coronavirus does. There we go. Numbers for Italy. Let's take a look at some of the numbers for Italy. But I got to get out of this mode here. This isn't going to work. I need somebody technical like Adam here to change all these screens for me. Okay, hang on. Stop that share. Share this one. Where is it here? There, it's my Facebook. So, there we go. Okay. Mandatory vax coming. Wouldn't surprise me one little bit. They're going to have some trouble with me. I haven't had a vaccine since I was in the 5th grade. They gave me a vaccine in the 5th grade, and like virtually instantly, I got deathly ill. And I was ill for who knows how long, right? Week, 2 weeks. I don't know how long it was, but I was deathly ill. And, you know, you might say that's just a coincidence, but that's a little too much of a coincidence for me. Like instantly after getting this vaccination, I was sick. And I haven't had a vaccination since. And my plan is to keep going through my life without having any more vaccinations. I've made it into my 50s now without vaccinations, and I haven't died. I'm still alive. Isn't that amazing? But let's go full screen here. What field do I work in? I try to keep my employment as private as possible because I've got all kinds of people who want to destroy me in my life and would love nothing more than to see me homeless in a box by the side of the road. So I try to keep that as on the low as possible. Even people I really trust, I don't tell because people slip up. I just, like I say, all I'll say is I work in the supply chain. I work nights. I move supplies that people use in society. And that's why I say that, they lay off half of people like me, we're going to have supply problems. And that's exactly what's happening in my job. And they're talking about laying me off too until this killer bug problem that's killed 9 people out of 37 million in Canada. 9 people out of 37 million. But it's the apocalypse. It's the end of the world. And we all got to surrender our rights and our liberty and our jobs and our businesses and everything. Because otherwise, this virus is going to get us. Well, maybe not. Okay, we kind of admit that it might only get Granny. But that's okay. As long as Granny's alive. She's not going to be able to eat because there's no food on the shelves. But she won't get the virus. Well, actually, they have reported that. I do have those numbers. So let me bring that up first here. Let's bring that up. I've got the numbers from the government. Let's see if I can find it. There it is. Okay, from the government of Canada. Okay, so you can see 37 million people. Hang on. You can't see it very well there, right? Let's make it a little bigger. Okay, so here we go. 37 million people in Canada. And what have we got here? We've got 9 people have died from this killer virus, this end of the world virus that we must destroy our economy to try to prevent. Because if we don't destroy our economy and empty our shelves and send everybody into a crazed panic, well, another 9 people might die, and one of them might be Granny. We can't have Granny dying because we love Granny so much. That's why we brought in medical assistants and dying and are killing Grannies all over the place because we love Granny so much. But, whatever. So those are the official government numbers there. So what we got in BC, 231 cases. There's no probable cases. Isn't that interesting? But what I've been finding is that anybody who's got sniffle, even somebody who's got an allergy, now has COVID-19. So 231 cases in British Columbia. What do we have in BC? Almost 5 million people. Ontario is a much larger population, and 257. Total cases in Canada, 37,736. See, their numbers don't even add up here. They go number of probable cases. But do the math here. Do the math on that column there. How does it go to 354? Oh, man. Okay, what do we got here? Yeah, what's interesting is if you go to anything, like there's this comedy piece that I put up by, I think it's JP. He's a funny guy in the States there, a comedian. And the title of his comedy piece is Coronavirus Something or Another. And they've tacked on a link to the Government of Canada's website onto his video for anybody in Canada. So you can't put coronavirus in the title of your video unless you want the Government of Canada's website to be tacked to it. So, but that's it, yeah. 37 million people, grand total 9 deaths. And go take a look at the store. Like, I don't know where you all are, but I go to a grocery store here, and all of the key sort of grocery items, and let's not even get into toilet paper. All the sort of key grocery items like canned soup and spaghetti sauce and some of these things that you might want to have around in an apocalypse are all gone. A lot of empty shelves. And it's because of 9 people. But like what I really want people to do, and what I really like some of my followers, like somebody who I considered a friend 2 weeks ago, who was sort of on the same page with me as everything, now sees me as kind of a devil, right? And they were giving me heck because I was questioning the government line, and I was questioning whether or not the pharmaceutical company had come to save us all, and said that I was out of control and I was losing followers. Well, I don't know how many times I have to tell people that I don't care how many followers I have. Okay, how many clicks I get and how many followers I have and how much money people send me is not of interest to me. Okay, I do and say what I think is right in any given situation, regardless of how many people are going to like what I say. Okay, I'm hoping one day that that this sort of stance that I've taken will sort of be able to break through, and people maybe sort of begin to appreciate me more. But right now, I'm used to losing all kinds of followers whenever I say something that I think is true. So I don't care about followers. People what I find is that, yeah, sure. Okay, when I do things, when I say things that go against the masses, I lose followers. Sure, yeah. But what I found is as the numbers of followers shrink, the quality goes up. Okay, so I might lose 5 followers, and say I have a group of 6, I might lose 5 of them. But the one that stays behind, I find to be of such quality that they're worth 10 followers. Okay, because if you're a free mind, and you're a thinking mind, and you're somebody who's interested in truth, you're not going to go nuts when somebody offers an alternative thesis. What we got here? Yeah, so, shut down all the essential services, cut down the supply chain. What was it? San Francisco is shutting down for 3 weeks or something. That's all going to work out real well. Okay, we see the stock market crashing, right? They are trashing our government, like with a straight face. Is government's supposed to say, don't panic, everybody remain calm. Okay, it's only 9 deaths. Let's all just relax, right? Business as usual, right? This is what the government should be doing. But no, what they're doing is everything they can to make sure people panic, and hence are taking part in the emptying, not only the emptying of store shelves because of the panic that they're creating, but they're trashing the economy. Okay, they're talking about restaurants needing to shut down, cutting at minimum, cutting the number of customers that they serve in half. Well, what do you think that's going to do to these restaurants who are like right on the brink and living on the edge, right? Well, they're going to go bankrupt is what they're going to do, right? Does our government care? No, we've got 9 people dead, 37 million. That's obviously a threat to national security. So we must destroy as many businesses as possible, empty as many shelves as possible, right? In order to prevent another 9 people from dying. So I'm in my my apocalypse attire here. I need to get a longer leather skirt. I'm going to admit that. The leather skirt is just, it's too short, but I should have gotten rid of it, but I just couldn't bring myself to take it out of my closet. Yeah, it's funny how people need to work. And the thing with these hoarders, too, all these people who are hoarding stuff, right? If people just didn't panic, right? If people just sort of went about their business as usual and didn't get into this stockpile for the end of the world to save me. I got to save me. I got to save me. It's all about me. So if people didn't get into that mode and just went about business as usual, we wouldn't have this big crisis, okay? Granny wouldn't be in the grocery store yesterday looking through the shelves, wondering why she can't find the things that she normally buys, right? You have to try to tell Granny, okay, yeah, I know you can't buy any food. You can't buy any of the food that you usually eat and stuff. You can't buy any of that, but that's because everybody cares about you so much. We want to make sure you don't have any food to go along with not having any virus. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean the insanity of it, right? So I'm in the supply chain and they're laying half of us off. Well, what do you think if every company that's involved in supplying goods to society that the society needs cuts their workforce in half or shuts down? What do you think the effect of that is going to be? You would think that the people at the top of our society, which is supposed to be populated by the most intelligent people imaginable, if not the sock puppet corrupt slime balls who call themselves politicians who are really just sort of sock puppets, if not them, the very intelligent circle of people that surround them. And I've met some of these people, right? I knew a lot of these people going back to my days in university because a lot of them used to do, temporary professors and stuff at university. But I've met some of these people, right? And they're really, really smart, right? You would think that they would understand that by shutting down all of these supply chains, that this would cause exactly what we're seeing. I guess they're suddenly stupid. Either that, or they're up to something. The beer virus. Go, okay, well, I detect. Do I detect? Touch of the Q there. Here's my theory on the whole Q thing that everybody wants to talk about, this Q thing, that there's a secret struggle at the top between the white hats and the black hats. It's the good guys versus the bad guys. And Donald Trump is the king. He's the king of the good guys, okay? Don't leave him alone with your teenage daughter because he might grab her by the you-know-what. But really, he's actually a good guy. He's the king of the good guys, right? And so he's leading this good guy rebellion. And they're going to round up all of the pedophiles and all the bad guys, and they're going to get rid of them. And it's going to be a new good guy empire led by Donald Trump, King Trump. Sorry. So somebody else was saying that we have to believe that the top of society is like everywhere else and that there's good guys and there's bad guys. No, we don't. Yeah, there's good and evil in society. Yeah, there's good guys and there's bad guys. But at the top of society, they have a very carefully, long time established, careful vetting mechanism to make sure that good guys don't get to the top. Okay, they don't want good guys at the top. They want sociopaths like them, right? I mean, just to sort of imagine this, most people kind of conceive that the top of society is teeming with corrupt people, right? But some people think that there's some good people in there. But here's what I want you to imagine. Okay, so imagine that you've got all these jackals, right? All these vicious jackals from the corporate world and from sort of the corporate lawyers and stuff that tend to become politicians at the top. You've got all these jackals who are, they've got no conscience really, right? They'll kill, like Madeleine Albright. Remember Madeleine Albright, who was asked about the fact that 500,000 children and women had died in Iraq because of sanctions. And what did she say? Well, it's just the price that we need to pay. Not a single sign of any sort of remorse or that this was even a tough decision. Okay, just another one of those jackals, right? So you've got a room full of these jackals, right? And what the Q people want me to believe is that you're going to have a happy good dog with a wagging tail, a happy good dog with tongue hanging out. It's going to wander into this room full of vicious jackals, and the vicious jackals are just going to say, "Welcome, happy good dog. You're one of us now. Welcome. No, not going to happen. Okay, you're going to have one jackal leaning over to the other jackal and saying, get rid of them. That's the way it works. Hyperinflation soon. Who knows what's going to happen? We could be looking at the Great Depression again. And people say, oh, well, it comes and it goes, right? It's just it comes and it goes. The Great Depression didn't come and go. It took a long time to correct the damage that was done. And there was a lot of suffering and misery that came out of the Great Depression. So, but, you know, at least we'll get control of this cold, right? That killed 9 people in Canada. But everybody says, but look at Italy. Italy, it's you know, we don't want to become like Italy. It's so terrible in Italy. And they show the video footage from the hospitals, right? Just a zero. This is what psychology calls vivid examples, right? You focus on, you know, you can get like dozens of vivid examples and put them all together, and it might be like a complete aberration, right? Totally not indicative of the bigger picture, right? But if you focus on this handful of vivid examples, you can create panic, right? So they say we don't want to become like this terrible thing that's going on in Italy. So let's take a look at what's happening in Italy. Let's bring up those numbers. I've got it here somewhere. There it is. Give it a second. It's a little slow. I think the government doesn't want my computer working properly. There we are. Okay, so let's go full screen. Okay, and let's see what we can bring up. Okay, flu statistics for Italy, which strangely seems to be increasing yearly. Let's see what we can do here. As big as we can get there. Okay, so this is like between 2013, 14, and I don't know why that happened. Okay, my computer is really acting weird now. Just give me a second here. Try to get this working. Look how wacky my computer is. All of my devices are like this now, by the way. Okay, so we go from about 8,000 cases in 2013, 2014 in Italy, and most of the cases are 65 plus, vast majority. And look, as we go down towards 2017, the numbers go up and up and up and up and up and up and up. Something going on in Italy, gone up to 27,000 deaths by 2017 for a year for the flu. 27,000. And of those, 21,000 were 65 plus. Okay, so the vast majority. So there is something wacky going on in Italy. But if we go to the next sort of screen here, next graph that I have, hang on, if I can ever get there. Man, my computer is hooped. Okay, can we see that one? Can you guys see that one? Let's get that down there. Okay, so if you can see that one, what we have is Italy, deaths from the flu 2017. That's that big tall bar on the left. On the right there, we have COVID-19 deaths for 2020. Now, this bar on the left here, this is no concern. Don't concern yourself with that. That's not a problem. Nobody cares about that. No big deal. Just killed like 20,000 people, 65 plus. Don't worry about that. Now, on the right here, this is what you really got to be worried about. Yeah, this one on the right here, the 2,500, that is what you're supposed to be terrified of. And that, if that comes to Canada, it's terrible. So 2,500, take that out over a year, you're going to have about 10,000 or something, right? It's still less than the flu, but whatever. We've got to shut everything down, shut the whole sort of thing down, and that's what we got left. Hey, we got Adam. I'm going to bring in Adam. This will be fun. Let me just stop my share screen. Let's bring in Adam. Hey, Adam.
Hi, Jen.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you in the apocalypse? How's the apocalypse going for
Well, like I say, I got all my spikes. I got all my chains. I'm ready to roll. So
Nice. I just wanted to comment on what you were saying at the beginning about how, like, all of a sudden 2 weeks ago, there was at minimum distrust in the state. And then what I saw was what really it kind of got me fuming a little bit. A couple days ago, I don't know, it was 2 or 3 days ago. I think it was 2 days ago. Justin Trudeau, he made some announcement. He went live. I don't know. And so I don't pay attention to mainstream news. So I didn't know Justin Trudeau was making an announcement. I couldn't care less what that, incompetent fool has to say. So I go on Facebook and it's like, oh, everybody was like, Trudeau's live. Everybody, Trudeau's live. We got to go listen. Everybody's got to go listen to Trudeau. And I just lost it. I started like throwing things around. I'm like, what are you doing? Why? Like, so what? So it's like basically the whole country hangs on his every word as though he has some kind of authority or, but he's an idiot. He doesn't know anything. He was delivered a script and then he read the script on air, but everybody, even the, anti-government, most of them aren't really anti-government. They're right wing, they're anti-left government, but they're pro-right wing government. And so they're saying, oh, we got to listen to Trudeau. Everybody, it's on. This is really important. We have to listen to Trudeau. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I could tell you what he's going to say before he even opens his mouth.
Yeah, like he's actually going to speak truth or something, right?
Like he's going to speak truth. Exactly. Yeah. Like he's going to say something, like he's there to help. He's there to help Canadians. Don't worry. Really? Well, the government is playing along this game, this exacerbation game.
Right. Well, it's like I was saying earlier. I don't know if you heard that everybody's talking about, oh, they're putting in all these measures to save us from this killer virus and, emptying the store shelves and crashing the economy. And they're doing this because they want to save Granny, right? They got to save Granny from this killer flu. So that's why they're doing it, because they're so caring and they just love Granny so much. And they're so worried about our vulnerable old people. Meanwhile, just recently, they brought in this MAID thing, right? Medical assistance in dying, which is like very sort of, keen on the idea of getting rid of as many sickly grannies as possible, right? So it's like, don't tell me these people care about Granny. It's a pile of crap.
No, they don't care about Canadians at all.
Right.
They're not here to help you. So people are like, oh, the government's going to help you. No, they are going to do what they're going to do, and it has nothing to do with you. If there was a real problem, do you think Trudeau would even be on front of the camera talking? You would never see him again. He would abandon you at the drop of a cheap hat.
On the first plane to China.
Absolutely, 100%. First plane out of here. Why are people listening to the government? And I also find it strange. So there is a reaction by there's like, you could talk, all these things are going on. Like, I don't know if most people don't read email anymore, but I still do a lot of emailing, and I probably have 20 emails that are all the same script. It's about COVID-19, and there's a funny thing about the way they changed the Overton window. Wasn't it the novel coronavirus?
Yeah, it keeps changing.
Now it's the COVID-19. Where did that come from? Does anybody even know? Nobody knows. Well, I have an idea, but nobody even, it's just they go along, and the mainstream media just drives me nuts. Because they just play the card all day, every day, COVID-19. Listen, news idiot. And I don't use the word journalism because that doesn't even exist. And by the way, go look up what journalism even means. It doesn't mean someone who's reporting on the news. The news, everything that the government says isn't news, it's propaganda. So anyways, I get all these emails. It's all the same script. all the way from, you know, the government of Canada down to like the Victoria International Film Festival and everybody in between, gas stations, movie theaters, you know, software apps that I use on the internet to do work. And it's like they all have the same script. Mm-hmm. It's like, you know, this, that, so essentially they've been instructed, right? And by whom? Well, it's not the government, because the government got the exact same set of instructions.
Right.
Change the Overton window from novel coronavirus to COVID-19. Well, there was an Overton window change in the beginning that nobody even knows about. It wasn't even the novel coronavirus in the beginning. It was just coronavirus. Mm-hmm. And then they patched on novel. And why did they do that? That word novel to me is absolutely infuriating. That word in the technocratic community is them taking diarrhea, pardon my language, all over your face. Because the coronavirus is not novel. It's the exact opposite of novel. Nobody knows where it came from. Nobody knows what it really is. Nobody knows what it really does. Nobody knows the symptoms. We don't have a cure. It isn't novel. It's ultra sophisticated. It's a bioweapon, in my opinion. And I've looked at some of the information, and I'm almost 100% confident it was made in a lab. The only thing I don't know is who made it and where it came from. But I can tell you it was DARPA. DARPA, DARPA, DARPA. Their name is all over this. I dare you to go on the internet and search for DARPA coronavirus and find out what they're doing about it. What they're doing about it. But they made the stupid thing. You know, maybe not firsthand, but they funded the companies that made it. And they gave them the little technological upgrades that they can put in there. It's not like anything we've ever seen, and it isn't going away. Well, which is the kind of the sad thing about it. Like a lot of people, and I don't blame you for talking about this angle. A lot of people talk about, well, compare it to the flu. Way more people die than the flu. You know, look at Italy. It's not really that bad. Look at China. Well, they're lying anyways. Which government in the world do you believe the word that comes out of their face? Zero. There isn't a state on this planet that isn't your enemy. They're not telling you the truth. And here's, ironically, the NHS, which is the state, they have said that any numbers that you see, read, or hear are 10 to 20 times higher because we don't know. Well, maybe that is true, and I think it's true. They don't know. We don't know. Nobody knows. Does it even exist? Do you know anyone that has it?
Well, the thing is that right now, the way people are behaving right now, anybody who's even got an allergy or a runny nose, they're instantly, you're treated like a leper. They got to have the COVID, and I got to stay away from you. You're going to kill me and Granny and everybody, right? So that's how most of the diagnoses are happening. So Kathy says there are 200,000 cases worldwide, justification for what is happening. Well, no, not when. Okay, so the comparison with the flu is that there were like much worse flus out there with much higher mortality rates and stuff, and affected way more people. We didn't see what was happening, what's happening now, happening at that time. And sort of the comparison between them is sort of startling and should be eye-opening to people, and make people say, a big capital WTF, right?
Well, I have a strange, because I am strange. My mind. That's why Jen.
Not strange as me.
That's why Jen and I are friends. Maybe a little on the stranger side, but my opinion on the whole thing about like mortality rate, again, comparing to the flu and saying it's not really that bad and blah blah blah. Okay, all that's true. Mind you, we don't really know. It could be not even as bad as what they're saying. It could be worse. We don't really know. But my strange opinion on it is that it's not. Those are sort of pedestrian, and no offense to anybody, but that's kind of a pedestrian way to look at it, in my opinion, in a strange way, because it's not, to me, about who's going to get it and who's going to die. And how fast are they going to die, and the R rate and all that stupid stuff that they do. They talk about in virality and stuff like that. I think I'm looking at a different kind of angle on this, and that is that some of the rhetoric that they put out, and I said on our show a couple of weeks ago, we need to bring this conversation back into the public because I haven't heard it in a while, and we are going to hear it very soon, and it's going to be very important. It's going to be a big propaganda push, and that's going to be the herd immunity.
Oh yeah.
Now that concept hasn't kind of not really been around much lately because there's just been no real reason to learn about it or talk about it unless you're interested in it, which I am. And so I've been around the block with this whole herd immunity thing too. But what they're saying, so here's the rhetoric that the government this is their plan, guys. This is how they're going to help you. The government is saying in the United Kingdom and in Canada that up to 70 or 80% of the whole planet could get this coronavirus. Now, I believe that is true. I think we're all going to get it, every single one of us. Now, is the mortality rate going to be high? No, you're probably going to be fine. But once you get it, you always have it for the rest of your life. The backup evidence to that is we know in China, again, they're lying, but they've told us that some people get it, they've recovered, and then they get it again. Well, I put it to you that once you get it, and we're all going to get it, that you have it for life. Now, to me, that's my strange mind. I'm looking at this like a weapon. What do weapon designers do when they make weapons, right? They don't make it like something you can just be, oh, there's a couple things over here. Like, let's look at a couple data points. What is the mortality rate? How fast does it spread? How long do you have it for? Do you get it again? All this like medical data points. Sure, those are all true, but that's if you're talking about like the flu or what I mean, or a cold or SARS or whatever else, tetanus, Hep B, whatever, all the other kind of classic viral diseases. But no, this is not a classic viral disease. It's brand new. And it was made by the government, who's now going to come to save you. So anyways, look, just to finish on that point. So what they're saying is, yeah, the government's going to save you. I know, right? Like what happened to people? But anyways, so herd immunity. So they're saying that 80% of the world is going to get it. But when you look deeper, that's what they want. Because then that's how they believe herd immunity works, but it's a myth. That's not. It's a lie. So my problem is, let's say herd immunity was real. It's a real thing, which it isn't. And we give 80% of the planet this disease or whatever it is,
Virus,
and that's their plan to save you. In order to get better, in order to save the world from this disease, everybody's going to have to get it. That's what they're going to say. You just wait and see. So I'm concerned because, and then let's just talk about the COVID-19 because it kind of puts the cap on this. When did they change? Who changed it? When? Why?
COVID-19. Well, 19, that makes way and sets you up for COVID-20 and COVID-21 and COVID-22.
Nailed it. Precisely. Exactly. They're already talking about it when you go into the inner circles of the cabal and you listen to what they're saying. They're like, what are we going to do about COVID-20? Because our COVID-19 response was so poor. Yeah, man, they got this. This is a long ass game. This is a long game. Now, if 35 million human beings were eradicated off the face of the planet because of the coronavirus, which is what Bill Gates kind of talked about in the Event 201 and all that. They were planning for 35 to 60 million people. Actually, I think it was 30 to 65, but whatever. So a couple of things on that angle. Yeah, if 35 million people died, and then that kind of took some time, whatever, and then we were kind of like post, almost like 9/11, where we're looking back and we're talking about it because it's already happened. Put yourself in that mindset for a second. None of us are going to feel very good when we're talking about 35 million as the number. Mm-hmm. Right now, we think it's fine. It's not a big deal. Nobody's dying. Well, I'll just play with that number for a second. 35 million. Are you going to feel very good? No, we're all going to feel like terrible. So I feel like the idea here isn't a release and destroy weapon. It's a release and deploy And then once it's deployed, then you have free reign to do whatever you want, right? And that's where, you know, you can talk about the conspiracies about like the 5G and all that other stuff. I don't know anything about that. I don't go there. It definitely could be true, but no matter what the technology is that they use to manipulate this disease once it's in your body, which is, it's not a thing that, you know, it's a new weapon. So once it's in all of us, that's their plan, then you're going to start to see things happen. That's when the action happens. And then at some point, you know, it could be 3 years. Like, you know, they've already planned on 19, 20, 21. They got 3 years locked down. All the funding that we don't know about, forget about the 82 trillion or billion that Trudeau's giving. That where's that come from? There's no way Canada has $82 billion. And we will have to pay that back. So at what cost? Higher taxes? Oh, I don't think so. They got to do a lot more than higher taxes to get 82 billion. And imagine this: $82 billion that Canada needs just for Canada. Well, what about the United States when they're going to need? And they've already, what was it last week? Was 11 trillion got tossed over the side. That was at the start. So once now after this, everybody stays home for 2 weeks at least. How much money is the United States going to need? A lot. But it's not just Canada and the United States. No, it's Italy, it's France, it's every country in the world is going to need a bailout in 6 months. It's going to make the bail-ins that they did in 2008 to the bankers that's nothing. That was nothing. Those were just banks. This is every country on the face of the planet. After 80% of the people have it, for herd immunity is going to. I think that now what's going to happen is we're going to roll into the spring and the summer. Things are going to calm down. Most people are going to forget about it, and we're going to have to start dealing with the mandatory vaccines because you're not sending your children back to school until they get vaccinated. That's why they shut down the schools. Get all the kids home, and then we can just turn it back on. But say, well, in order to come back, you gotta. Why is everybody at home right now? What are they waiting for? Mm-hmm. They don't even know it, but they're waiting for the vaccines to come out. In fact, I feel like it's almost a phantasmic, like overlay on all of society that they somehow did through mind control. And that is that, you know, we'll just have the public so brainwashed into the vaccines and the science and the medical system the way it is, which is a disaster, to believe it's a beautiful thing when it's a death care industry, like Jen was talking about with the maid. They're not talking about saving people before this thing was released. They were talking about how to kill people. Mm-hmm. And now they're talking about saving you? You better fucking wake up.
Well, this is what I'm talking about, how people have lost their minds. They've gone insane. It's like, oh, yeah, the government is so interested in saving old people. That's why because they kind of concede that in terms of mortality, it's mainly old people who are being taken out by this thing, right? So all these measures are being put in place to save all these old people because they care so much about old people. And it's like can you just like stop for a second and think about who you're talking about and what they just implemented with MAID and the problems that we're having with MAID and how they're just like trigger happy on the MAID button there to get rid of people. Now all of a sudden we're supposed to believe they care about these old people. It's nuts.
Oh, again, you know, I have a strange mind. I used to read a lot of science fiction books when I was a kid, right? So it's like, you know, do they have some kind of technological weapon that's in the TV? You know, and you can't even use it for TV anymore because people don't have TVs. It's like, you know, whatever it's not the device. It's not the device that it's the signal. And it's not you and me. Like when we're on YouTube right now, we don't have this.
The Videodrome signal.
Right, exactly. So they have this kind of Videodrome signal, and so when Trudeau went live on Tuesday or whatever day it was, and that's why everybody was like, well, Trudeau's live, we gotta go live. It's like, what are you doing? You're gonna get the Videodrome. And then they installed it, and then this is the bizarre, and then it gets really bizarre.
Right.
I work from home, so to me, like literally nothing's changed.
Right.
But I'm like, what? You're not going to work today? Like, where you're not, your shop isn't open? So there was no decree. There's no law. Nobody said go home. Well, at least not to us, but it trickled down.
They suggested it, so that
they suggested it, and then everybody just, that's where the video drone signal came in.
Bah, bah, bah.
Oh, it's so bad. and I do feel like Jen and I and Freedom Free for All, sometimes we talk about like this insanity that goes on in the world lately, last couple of years. And there has been some with, like, you know, the LGBT and the children, and that's where Jen comes from. And of course, with Freedom Free for All, we try to spattering and cover a little bit of it all. And but I just kind of feel like that this injection of craziness.
No pun intended.
Well, in 6 months we go back and revisit that.
Right.
But that was kind of like it had an overall goal. Like, yes, it created chaos on the bottom layer and all across the board, but it also kind of like, you know, I don't know, did it dumb people down, or it doesn't make them dumb. It just creates a disconnected. All the neurons are like disconnected in the brain because they can't figure stuff out. Mm-hmm. They're like, wait, the government's my friend and they're here to save me. They wouldn't possibly go after the children with sex education in kindergarten. And then they are, and you're like, huh? And then they kind of snap and snizzle, and then you're like, no, climate change is a hoax. It's man-made global warming doesn't exist. This is, you know, Maurice Strong and the UN and Agenda 21. And they're like, no, the government, why would they lie? The media is lying too, Adam. Come on. Everything's a lie? That can't possibly be. But over the last couple of years, like, I think more and more people, they're very cynical about it, and they're not open about it in the public channels, you know, like your brother-in-law or your uncle or your friends over there. They don't, but they know. And so these things have been snapping inside their head. They're just able to contain it, unlike Jen and I, because they don't, you know, they're not on the front line of this business of trying to communicate this message.
Right. Well, I think what I see with people in terms of the media, and this even with people who you could say are normally kind of with us, right, is that if the media is saying something they disagree with, then the media is all controlled and full of liars. But the moment the media starts saying something that they agree with, suddenly, okay, well, now the media is honest. There's always been this honest element. It's like, man, they are playing you constantly. And this is one of the things that I haven't had a chance to get around that I wanted to put into my new upcoming public talk tour, is the history of intelligence agencies' infiltration of the media and the implications of that. Okay, so way back in the 60s, they admitted to having something like 400, depends on who you listen to at that time, but between 400 and 800 Central Intelligence Agency assets in the mainstream media, spinning stories and stuff. And they said they could plant any story, any time on any subject that they wanted, right? Mm-hmm. So 400 to 800 back in the 60s. Now, what do you think over the course of time, has that problem gotten better or worse, right? My theory is because, like, okay, we know, like, this is not conspiracy theory. Okay, so we know that the Central Intelligence Agency admitted to infiltrating the media. Now, there were allegedly laws in place that were designed to scale that back. And so, you know, by the time you get into the 80s and 90s, people are saying, well, that's not going on anymore. But then along comes 2001, and we find out about the Office of Strategic Influence, which basically its whole stated purpose was to infiltrate the media abroad and to spin and control information abroad. But then they started figuring out that, well, okay, we're in a global society. So when our intelligence assets are out there planting fake stories and manipulating the press in foreign countries, that's coming back into the United States, right? So people were getting upset about that. So there was a lot of pressure to get rid of the Office of Strategic Influence, and they got rid of it. But when they got rid of it, Donald Rumsfeld, he talked about this, and he said, yeah, so when they first came to me and told me that I had to get rid of the Office of Strategic Influence, he was the head of that office, right? And he said, okay, all right, so actually what you really want is you want the name. you could have the name. Okay, the name's all yours. You don't want any more Office of Strategic Influence? Fine, it's gone. Gone. Say no more. No more Office of Strategic Influence. But what I can tell you is all of the stuff that they've been doing, all of the work that they have been doing is going to continue to be done. So what he was saying at that time was that he had sort of extrajudicially created an organization whose task was to spin information in the media that had no name and apparently no chain of command, or at least any traceable chain of command, right? So a black op controlling the media. But that is just the American intelligence establishment. What about the Mossad? What about CSIS? What about MI6? What about all these global intelligence agencies? So when you start thinking about this, right, then you start to, being maneuvered into a place in your mind where you have to start wondering, okay, so how many real journalists are there in the media, right? So it could be that bad right now, where, and I actually believe that it is. And I'm going to admit freely that I can't prove that, right? All I can do is point to the documentary history and say that we know they exist. Okay, and then we can sort of extrapolate from that and bring in other intelligence agencies and sort of come to the conclusion that it's probably a lot worse. But we can't say for sure. I think that we're living in a virtual control matrix with our mainstream media, and I think that's why. And I've talked to you about this before, Adam, as well. I think that's why they have been so hell bent on cracking down on the internet, social media, and digital media, because what that did was it sort of broke their monopoly of control, right? And it allowed people like me to come up out of nowhere, right, and inject myself into the middle of a very important debate. And that is like a nightmare horror for the establishment. And that's why you see all these laws all around the globe trying to crack down on social media and digital media.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's all like amazing points, because the media is pretty low down, and most people, if they do distrust the government to some extent, yeah, that's what they do. And in the United States is pretty classic, because either you watch CNN or you watch Fox. And if you watch one or the other, then you think the other one is the enemy and this one's your friend, when the reality is they both lie.
Right.
They both have been insurrected by that black ops thing that Jen's talking about. And also with the social media, this is also a pretty interesting one. I feel like you were talking about how your computer's not working that well. And I'm just thinking, I've been noticing some strange things since this, self-isolation, which is just anti-human agenda anyways. But without going into that, it's like, so, on Facebook, there was that everybody was having problems posting articles about the coronavirus. In fact, I tried to post an article which was very, inane as far as I could tell. It came from veteranstoday.com. Now, I know some people don't like the military, and certainly the government hates the veterans, but it wasn't like a conspiracy website. It was Veterans Today. It seems like it was legit to me. And the article was about where the coronavirus and the U.S. military international sporting event that they had in October in Wuhan, which I found out about, strangely enough. Again, things just happen to me now and I can't stop it. So anyways, yeah, that's my opinion on where it came from. It was deployed by the U.S. military because they sent a fake sporting team to the, anyway, I tried to post this article. You can Google it. It's on Veterans Today. It's about the military sporting event in Wuhan in October of 2019. And I'm like, it's like, actually, if you watch the video on their website, it's really incredible. This is a big deal. They have all this huge stadium and everyone's got torches and they have all this Illuminati symbolism, just like it's a secret Olympics that the military has that I had never heard of. And I'm 42 and I just heard about it. So anyway, I tried to post this article and it instantly, the second I pasted it into the field, I got an error saying this goes against our community guidelines. It wasn't an error like, oh, we don't know what we're doing. No. It was against the community guidelines. when I assure you there was nothing in that article that went against the community guidelines. I couldn't send it as a message. I couldn't post it to my wall. I couldn't post it as a comment. Exact same thing. And then a couple days later, yesterday, we all saw the news about how Facebook was manipulating the coronavirus information. Well, of course they are. And again, does the public think that Facebook is out there? Oh, and then yesterday, all the social media guys, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, they put out a big announcement of how they're all working together really, really hard to keep us all connected in this time.
So keep us all brainwashed.
Yeah, exactly. Let's put this puzzle together, because it isn't just the social medias. No. It started out over there as a military lab deployment, and now everybody's been psychologically programmed to self-isolate into their own damn homes, shutting down like the world, and we think we're going to live past the next 2 weeks without food when we're not. But now the social media giants are all getting together to help us stay connected while we're in our homes, manipulating the bloody news. That's not staying connected. What is the plan here?
Oh, well, I mean, from the moment I began sort of looking at the transgender agenda 3 years ago, it became pretty clear to me at that point that there was a totalitarian undercurrent taking place in society, and that the elite elements of society who are ultimately driving this. Everybody talks about this being a leftist agenda, the transgender thing. It's a leftist agenda. It's been funded by the corporate elite establishment from day one. This is not a leftist agenda. It's an elite agenda. And the elite agenda has been for some time moving us towards more totalitarian state control. Okay, and this whole sort of virus thing actually plays right into that. But what I found sort of most not only frustrating but startling to me in this whole coronavirus thing is the ability of them to change people's thinking like on a dime, like 180-degree instant turn. Okay, so people who 2 weeks ago loved me and supported me because of my distrust of the government and the establishment, and because of my talking about how corrupt the pharmaceutical establishment was. People who loved me for that for 2 weeks ago have turned 180 degrees. And now I am the devil because I'm questioning the government and questioning the pharmaceutical establishment. I am the devil, and I am the, what you might call a virus sympathizer, and I'm sort of I'm contributing to the death of grannies all over the world because I'm not going along with the government, right?
Why? What do they like? I guess I have two questions about that. Like, how in any way are you sympathizing with the virus? But what's their internal motivation? Like, what is their need? Why are they abandoning you? Is it because they're like, I'm going to go home and just wait for the vaccine and the government to save me? Is that what they're doing? Is that their plan now?
Right. So the argument, the general argument is that the 9 deaths that this has allegedly caused in Canada, I should understand that this is a national disaster. Okay. And the fact that I don't accept this as a national disaster, and that unless the government locks everything down, right, and creates sort of a military control state, like unless the government does that, we're all going to die, or at least all of our grannies are going to die, right? One of those two things. And if I don't support this, that means I actually support the virus and the deaths that it's going to cause, right? And that there's something terribly wrong with me. And like many people have said to me that, yeah, we agreed with you about the transgender thing, but this time you're dead wrong. You're 100% wrong, and you're just way off base. And what you're doing is going to, if people start following you, well, you're going to cause all kinds of deaths and stuff, right? So now I've become a killer, right, by questioning the government and the pharmaceutical establishment, which I've been doing all along for years. It's like, okay, say what you want about me, but at least I'm consistent, right?
Yeah, consistency is something I definitely appreciate in human beings. I got someone at my door, Jen, so I'll see you later. I'll be online. Thank you so much, my friend.
See you, Adam. Okay, that's Adam Blaney. He's been one of the driving forces behind Freedom Free for All for 5 years or so in Victoria. Okay, so this is the thing, though, here, Irene. I've already told you that I have looked at that. Okay, I just had statistics from Italy on the flu in Italy. And the fact that these 2,500 deaths or whatever it was in Italy, nothing compared to the flus there. And if you look at the pattern of deaths among old people from various viruses in Italy, it's been going up and up and up and up and up and up every year, almost like the government in Italy kind of wants to get rid of old people. So like we do here in Canada with MAID, where we're deliberately giving Granny and the other people the boot, right? So the other thing that you have to keep in mind with me is that apparently, unlike most of the population, I am aware of the intelligence infiltration of the media. Okay, so what people are doing is they're coming to me and they're telling me that all these intelligence assets in the media and all of these liars in the media who I've been dealing with 3 years myself and have seen what lying, deceiving manipulators they are firsthand, right? That suddenly they're all honest, and all of this information stuff that they're giving to us from Italy that's proof positive that we're all going to die and we're all dead unless we submit to the total lockdown of all society. Just forget this, the fact that we're just going to trash the economy, maybe drive us into another Great Depression. People will starve to death. All kinds of grannies will die because they can't get food and stuff. Just forget all of that. The media now is honest, and the government is honest, and all of these stories that are coming out of Italy and stuff, this is all honest, and there's nothing manipulated or staged about that. They're not trying to push any buttons. It's all just honest, right? Sorry, I don't buy it. So, I mean, okay, so 9 deaths in Canada, okay? So, okay, you say you don't want it to be like Italy. Italy's got like roughly twice the population of Canada. So if we were like Italy, well, then we'd probably have about 1,500 deaths out of 37 million. Okay, so now you have to sort of talk about, a balanced response. Okay, so let's say it was 1,500. Well, tens of thousands of people die every year from viruses in Canada, right? So this is just sort of standard operating procedure in the health industry. So if it was 1,500, that's actually a pretty low number. But let's just assume that you're right, that this is something bad or whatever. Okay, so but what about your response? Okay, what are you seeing happening in society now? Okay, I can't go into a grocery store without walking down aisles that are empty. Okay, we've got a panic reaction. Okay, you look at what's going on with the stock market. The stock market is crashing. Our government is coming out with insane instructions for small businesses and stuff, saying we want you to either shut down or cut your business in half. And a lot of these businesses are going to go out of business. Okay, you're going to destroy our economy to go after this coal that is largely under control in China, right? Allegedly. I mean, I don't know we can believe any information anywhere anymore. All I know is what I can see, right? All this stuff on the TV news and stuff, that's who knows? Stuff is staged all the time. Does anybody remember the incubator baby thing during the Iran-Iraq war? This whole sort of situation where babies were unplugged and dumped on the floor and their incubators stolen in Iraq. Well, that was this very real thing that was in the news, and it's proof positive that the Iraqi military there, Revolutionary Guard, I guess they were called, were these horrible, terrible monsters. And how could anybody question that they were horrible, terrible monsters when you can see what they've done with these babies? Well, it was all fabricated. Okay, so people trust what they see on the news. I don't. I trust what I see around me. Okay, and people get colds and flus all the time. Okay, yeah, whatever. I don't see people dropping like flies all around me. What I see happening is the shelves emptying in the stores. What I see happening are businesses shutting down. What I see happening is when I go to my job, where the parking lot's normally full, the parking lot is now empty. And that's what I can see, and that's what I can know. And it doesn't take a genius to try to figure out what that's going to do to the economy. Okay, so as long as you keep spreading paranoia about this virus, you're going to destroy our economy. And that is an insane thing to do, in my opinion. Well, you're trusting all the information that's coming to you. You don't know where this information is coming from. I don't trust any information that I'm getting. I trust what I see around me, right? I drive past the hospital here in Abbotsford every night on my way to work, right? What I saw last night was interesting because there's so many things have been shut down that the streets that are normally relatively populated when I'm driving to work were relatively empty. And so I drive past the hospital. I'm thinking, okay, well, the hospital is going to be packed, right? Because all these sick people are going to be in the hospital and it's going to be packed. Well, the hospital parking lot was just as empty as everywhere else. So, I don't know. I went to our doctor's office the other day and he was so happy to see us. He had no patience. Care providers are waiting for the surge. Yeah, well, I don't know. All I know is that they are destroying the economy, and people who normally distrust the government and distrust big pharma are cheering on the destruction of our economy. Yay, let's destroy our economy, right? Let's throw us into a new Great Depression. You know, I don't personally know anybody who's died from this virus, but that doesn't matter. They tell me it's terrible, so let's destroy the economy. Okay, let's destroy the economy then. Well, it should have crashed sooner or later. Yeah. Well, what looks like to me, because the government, like normally a government where you've got some sort of healthcare crisis, the role of the government is to calm, right? To make sure people are calm and let's not panic, because panic is not good. The good government is very sort of balanced and controlled and instills a feeling of confidence and control and trust in the situation with the population. That's what a government would normally do. But what we have now is we have a government that is doing everything to create panic. It begins to look like a controlled demolition of our economy. And if our economy crashes, and if this goes into Great Depression type crash of our economy at the behest of our leadership, I'm going to regard all of our politicians in Canada as treasonous. And in my opinion, deserving to be arrested. Because if they're going to deliberately crash our economy, that is a crime against the population. So anyway, let's just see if there was anything else that I wanted to discuss here. Some people were talking about some stuff on Facebook. Let's see if I can bring up those discussions. My computer is whacked. Let's see here. Okay, hang on. So yes, I had the numbers out of Italy, which was 2,500 deaths at last check, compared to 27,000 deaths from the flu the year before. I'm going to just scroll right on back here. Yeah, so our politicians done everything they can. Nobody saying, please remain calm. And interesting, because I was involved in this court case to do with the father who's been forced to transition his daughter. I got dragged into the Supreme Court on that and was initially thrown a crumb by the judge. But the other side, the lawyers on the other side, snatched that crumb away from me right away by filing or submitting a stay on the order and taking it into the Court of Appeal. And I noticed now that the court, the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal in BC have announced that they're going to do basically only essential court stuff until the end of May. So that might be kind of instructive for everybody in terms of timelines that we're working. Imagine sort of destroying our economy till the end of May. And here's another thing that was kind of interesting. I showed here the other day that I think it was last year, there were a total of 169 million flu shots given in the United States with an average cost of about $16 per shot. In that with this COVID-19, if they come up with a vaccine for it, you can expect at least the same numbers. And that was just the United States, 169 million. So if you want to be conservative, the pharmaceutical industry will probably come up with something in the neighborhood of at least 500 million shots and about $16 a shot. You're looking at $1 billion in sales, right, from just one vaccine. $8 billion in sales from just one vaccine. So there's big money that we're talking about here. And people say that when you talk about the economy, that the people at the top of our society would never do anything to trash the economy, right? Because their livelihoods depend on the value of the dollar and stuff like that too. Well, that shows what I would call a complete ignorance of the history of way elite financial interests function. I mean, look at the history of the Depression. Okay, so you've got people there who were involved, who were making enormous profits off of the Depression, right? Buying up businesses that were going bankrupt for dimes on the dollar, right? So a lot of the super wealthy, it was like the middle class and the lower class who really suffered from these things, not the upper class. They just bide their time. And what they do is when a business start going under, they buy up these businesses and their interests, and they get filthy stinking rich because they can afford to wait it out until the depression or whatever it is over. So saying that they would never do anything to mess with the economy because it affects them, at the top of our society is a very sort of relatively small group who could benefit enormously from another depression. It's happened many times throughout history where super wealthy people have actually benefited from crashes of economies, booms and busts, if you will. So that's nothing new. Governments all around the world are criminals. Hopefully the virus gets them all. I don't think the viruses can get any of them, personally. Yeah. See, I don't know. So people are talking about whether this is a designer virus or whether it's a natural virus. To me, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter either way. I don't even need to trouble my brain with that. All I look at are the numbers. Okay, so I look at 9 deaths in Canada. Right. That's what I look at. I'm not bothering myself about, what is the etiology of the virus? I don't know. I have no way of knowing. Right. I'm just looking at the numbers and trying to come up with a reasonable explanation as to why they are crashing our economy for something that's caused 9 deaths. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. They won't be shooting anything into my arms. So this is the whole sort of forced vaccination thing. I don't know. I haven't really followed too closely what they did in China in the aftermath here. I mean, are they forcing everybody to get vaccinations in China? I don't know. The thing about China is it's a different economy than we have over here, right? It's essentially what I would call a fascist economy. People like to say it's a communist economy. It's not. It's a fascist economy. I think is it Shanghai? Might be Shanghai. Beijing, or maybe it's Beijing. Yeah, Beijing, I think, has the greatest number of billionaires in the world. That's your clue that it's not a communist economy, right? It's a fascist economy. And 60% of the population in China at last check were migrants. So they were constantly moving from city to city, from job to job, constantly, all the time, 60% of the population. So it's not, once again, it's not a government that cares a lot about its people. And there's an awful lot of people in China getting filthy rich. and our economy is different. So state capitalism, that's what I called China, state capitalism. Here it's just sort of capitalism, but it's becoming more and more state capitalism. Could be that we're on a road towards seeing Western culture become more and more like China. And this is why maybe we're seeing some of these leaders singing the praises of China. So we had the leader of Serbia, talking about the terror and the destructive power of the coronavirus in Serbia, even though nobody's been killed in Serbia. He's begging and pleading for help from China, saying, we need to pray to China. The dragon will come save us, right? Nobody's been killed in Serbia, but suddenly China is the great model for the world, right? China is now the new leader. This is the ultimate way to run a society, and it shows that by having totalitarian powers, that the government can save us from these disasters. So totalitarian, this is like man is woman, war's peace. Now totalitarianism is good, right? Because it's good for the people, right? Everything's being inverted now. So what used to be understood as bad, totalitarianism, is now becoming good. China is becoming this beacon light of the world all of a sudden. Yeah, so everybody is telling me that it's worse than what they're saying, right? Maybe it is worse than what they're saying. But how do we know? That is a presumption that it's worse than what they're saying. And even if it was worse than what they were saying, let's say it was 10 times worse, right? And that instead of 9 people dying, there was 90 people dying out of 37 million. Shall we crash the economy over it? Spread mass panic? Shut down all kinds of businesses? Bankrupt all kinds of businesses? Put all kinds of people out of work? Right? I go into the grocery store there and I can't buy half of the stuff that I want to buy, right? And I go outside and there's homeless people out there looking for handouts and stuff. I'm thinking, boy, these guys are going to have it even tougher now, right? People can't get what they need for themselves. And then when they get the stuff that they need from themselves, what are the odds they're going to be giving it to these homeless people now? Right? This is the way things are going. But this is what everybody is screaming for. Yeah, let's crash the economy. Yeah, let's close everything down. Let's put everybody out of business. Let's put everybody out of jobs. People who live paycheck to paycheck, let's take away a couple of their paychecks, right? See what happens. Sorry if I can't get behind that, and I'm sorry if people want to hate on me for doing that. But I'm afraid that what you'll find from me is that I'm very consistent. Okay, the government is evil and bad yesterday, and they're the same way today, as far as I'm concerned. Same thing with Big Pharma. They don't just magically change overnight. Now they're the great sainted saviors of us all. Don't bank on it. So I will be consistent over time. So what's happening now is that everybody's gone a little crazy, right? And because I'm consistent and don't turn on a dime when the media and the government tells me to turn on a dime, now I'm the bad guy. Okay, I guess I'm going to be the bad guy. Yeah, I'd rather die than get a vaccine. So like I said, I was saying earlier that last vaccine I got was in grade 5 and I got deathly ill. I have no plans of getting a vaccine. I've not had a vaccine since then, right? And for the government to tell me that I have to get a vaccine, they got trouble coming, okay? Because they'll have to take me by force. And I'm not going to be alone, okay? There's some people going to come out with both barrels blazing to defend their physical sovereignty, okay? I don't want anybody sticking needles into my arm against my will. Wow, this is a good question here from the pseudonymous, is that the correct word? Dorian Gray. If they make you get a mandatory vaccine to return to work, how many will want to risk their livelihood? That's a very good question, right? As they used to say, they got you by the short and curlies. I'm not a big fan. Well, I'm not going to get into that. But that's a good question. So, okay, so let's put myself in that situation. You must get a vaccine or you have no job. That's a hell of a predicament to put people in. I would say that is, well, that's totalitarianism in action, right? So I think what you might see a lot of people doing, Adam's in a unique situation because there he is. Adam's in a unique situation because he works from home. Me, I work for a mega corporation, so they got that kind of power. Well, they'll say, okay, so you have to get the vaccine or you got no job. And probably they'll have sanction from the government. Probably the government's working on some sort of legislation right now to deal with that, right? And if it's to be challenged on constitutional grounds, that will take years, right? But in the meantime, it'll go into force. And so the corporations will have the power to make that kind of ultimatum to workers. So what would they do to me? Well, what am I going to do, right? It puts me in a tough situation. I think what you would see is a lot of people sort of saying, okay, I guess I've got no choice, right? I guess I've got no choice. But they're not going to like it. And probably what they're going to do is they're going to take their shots and they're going to take jersey numbers and they're going to start planning their revenge. How about that? Right? They'll say, okay, so the government can force me to take this vaccine, right? And you might have your victory today, but you've made an enemy. You've made a mortal enemy. You have violated my physical sovereignty. So a lot of people they're going to be creating an awful lot of people who hate the government. It could turn very ugly. People die every day, Irene. People die every day from all kinds of things. 140,000 people died of measles in 2018. 600,000 people die from the flu every year. People die all the time. Death is part of life. 100 years ago, I think it was William Osler, founder of modern medicine, described pneumonia as, I don't know if this is a 100% accurate quote, but it's certainly accurate in spirit, as the old man's friend. That's sort of the most popular expression or interpretation of what Osler said, is that pneumonia was the old man's friend because it sort of ended sort of frail lives, right? Which is considered part of life, right? Now, if somebody gets pneumonia or something, it's considered this great crime against humanity or something, I guess. But I would say people die all the time. Yeah, well, okay, so governments are liars. It's more than governments. I said governments are liars. The media are liars. And the corporate ghouls are liars, okay? The means of communication, okay, are no longer reliable. And so if you're relying on the mainstream media for your information, even the alternative media, okay, you're in dangerous water there. Okay, the most important thing that people can rely on is what's going on around them. Okay, what's going on in your town, in your vicinity, what's going on, right? That's what you can know, stuff that you can see, touch, taste, feel, all of these things, right? That's what you can know. Anything that's coming from elsewhere is coming through some sort of media channel that you don't know the integrity of. Okay, people think that. So Adam was saying earlier that people who watch CNN think that Fox is controlled and full of deceivers and stuff, and people who watch Fox think that CNN's controlled and is full of deceivers and stuff. Right? In my opinion, they're both controlled and full of deceivers, but it's more than that. So there's the alternative media, right? So people think, okay, don't go to the mainstream media, go to the alternative media for your information. Okay, well, let's just say that this research that I have done and can document about intelligence agencies infiltrating the mainstream media in order to control the public mind. Okay, so if they have recognized they need to get into the mainstream media to control the public mind, do you think that as alternative media emerges as a force, they're just going to leave that alone and say, oh, no, we can't touch that. That's the alternative media. We'll just let that go off on its own, and they can spin their own narrative. We'll just control the mainstream media. Not a chance in hell. Okay, so they're going to infiltrate that too. And we've got examples of this. And this is some of the stuff I wanted to work into my talk tour if I ever get to talk again, because everything's being quarantined, right? One of the things I wanted to talk about in my talk tour is that we have examples of intelligence agencies infiltrating the alternative media and controlling the media and using that media to spin things in certain directions useful to the establishment. So the means of communication or the sources of communication are this is poison, like it's a poison well everywhere you go. For the most part, the smaller, like Adam's Freedom Free for All, is going to be more trustworthy than name your major alternative media source, right? Probably the smaller, the more trustworthy. Although there's problems with smaller too. But yeah, pseudonymous is a good word. Yeah. Yeah, banana chip technology. I don't know. I mean, they can track us everywhere. Like if you've got a cell phone, you're tracked everywhere all the time anyway, right? If you carry your cell phone with you, there's a movie back in, must have been almost 20 years ago, Enemy of State with Denzel Washington, I think it was, and they already had the technology there to track everybody everywhere. Now with this new cell phone technology and the tablet technology and so many other things, they can track you everywhere anyway. They could put a nanochip into you. I'm not sure that would make a lot of difference because just about everybody's got a cell phone now that can be tracked. Yeah. Let's see, was there anything else that I wanted to cover here that was being discussed? I'm talking about my makeup. It's my new makeup thing. I'm going with my new Mad Max makeup, which is going to be spikes and chains and heavy eye makeup. And yeah, it looked like something out of a Mad Max movie. See if I can get Adam to roll with me. He can drive a car or something. Then when we come into bands of marauders or something, he can explain me, say, no, that's just Jen. Don't worry about Jen. Just don't try to feed Jen pork or anything, or you'll drive him into a rage. But other than that, you don't have to worry about Jen. Yes, you can throw your phone in the toilet. You certainly can, but you can't escape the establishment. So the establishment is either going to have to be submitted to, or it's going to have to be fought on some level. I mean, you look way back. When was that? Back in the 80s, the Randy Weaver thing, where you had these sort of, I don't know, what were they, Christian Identity or something? Anyway, sort of hardcore fundamentalist Christians who were survivalists and sort of off the grid and tried to resist the government. And the government came and shot the wife in the head while she was holding her baby. So the state, you can pull away from the state will come for you sooner or later. It's like the same debate that we have about Soji 123, and so many people saying, we'll do homeschooling. We'll just pull our kids out of school and we'll homeschool, and that'll be the solution to the problem. They've made homeschooling illegal in Germany. Okay, and that's coming for the rest of the world too. This is a beast that will come for you sooner or later, so you have to deal with it. There, I mean, you can run, but you can't hide, right? So I know that we have a problem on our hands. We have a problem on our hands with an emerging totalitarian state, and I don't know what the solution there is, or whether there is, a solution that's going to be able to deal with it. But just like I've said with my opposition to the transgender agenda, I'm not concerning myself with whether or not I can succeed. I concern myself with doing what I think is the right thing and resisting tyranny as it appears. And I will do that as long as I can. And maybe eventually they'll, put me in shackles and drag me off to prison. That might be coming for me someplace down the road. Maybe they'll give me cement shoes and drop me in a river. Maybe they'll do something, since we're talking about the pharmaceutical industry, maybe one day I'll be sitting at my computer and my face will turn blue and my eyes will explode because the pharmaceutical industry has come after me with one of their designer viruses, right? I don't know. Anything could happen to me. But, I can either submit or I can resist. My choice is to resist. And if that's doomed to failure, if that's doomed to put me in prison or in an early grave, I guess that's just the way it's got to be, and that's just what I got to do, and that's just the way it's going to play out. I can't be concerned about that anymore. But what would make it a lot easier is if the people who 2 weeks ago were on my side were still on my side and still understood that what I'm trying to do is what I think is right. And I thought the government was corrupt 2 weeks ago, and I thought pharmaceutical industry was corrupt 2 weeks ago, and I still think that, okay? And I still don't believe a damn word that comes out of those bastards' faces, right? And when they're doing things that seem to me almost tailor-made to crash our economy, I look at them like they are treasonous, like these are traitors, in my opinion. The frustrating thing is when people who agreed with me 2 weeks ago are now agreeing with these jackals and vampires. That's very frustrating to me. Building some tools for the car. Well, like I say, I've got my Dodge Charger, which has got a pretty good 6-cylinder engine in it, and rear-wheel drive, which is great for doing donuts in the desert, right? Or the wasteland, if you will. All I need is a roll cage. Some people won't like to hear this, but I am a gun owner. I'm a legal gun owner, so I'm ready for the apocalypse. And for everybody who's bailing ship on me now and siding with the government and siding with Big Pharma, all I can say is when the apocalypse comes, don't expect me to use my guns to defend your toilet paper. You are on your own. You're going to have to defend your own toilet paper. Don't expect for any help from Jen to defend your toilet paper, okay? You made your choice. That's all I'm going to say. So what else did we have? Did I miss anything? I like that video by with JP, the coronavirus panic. Everybody should watch that. It's on my Facebook page. I put a bunch of posts on my page too of music that I'm flashing back to from my super rebellious days. If you don't like heavy metal, don't listen to any of those songs. Just looking to see if there's anything else. Oh yes, there was this excellent letter from the infectious disease specialist in Toronto who's basically saying more or less the same thing as me, which is relax, right? This is like what really scares him is not this coronavirus. What scares him is what is happening to the economy, what's happening with this mass panicking. That's what scares him, right? And he's an infectious disease specialist. I'm of the same mind. You can talk about your coronavirus till the cows come home, but you better take a look at what's happening in your community right now in terms of shelves being depleted. But more than just the shelves being depleted, okay? So just go look at all of the supplies being depleted in the grocery stores. And then think for a second that people like myself who are in charge of replenishing these supplies are being laid off en masse. What do you think that's going to do to your supply chain? Okay, so everything that's going on right now seems to be tailor-made for mass chaos. And that's why I'm regarding our government as criminals and apparently bent on destroying our economy. Yeah, there was this thing that Sam Stein posted on Twitter too, outside Costco, I guess it was, this massive, huge, long lineup with people with shopping buggies waiting to get into Costco, right? It's the hoarding thing, and I forget which city it was. One of the cities in the States, they were having problems with their sewage system because so many people are using alternative toilet paper products, right? And some people were saying, well, if everybody's buying toilet paper, why are they using the alternative products? The reason is because the hoarders go in and they buy up all the toilet paper, and then people who aren't panicking go in to buy toilet paper, and there is no toilet paper because people are buried in toilet paper in their living rooms right now, and not everybody has toilet paper. So what are they going to do, right? Unless you got a bidet or something, you can use something like paper towel or whatever, right? So that's what's going on there. This is the brilliance of people hoarding. I think I've got like probably a couple of weeks of food in my cupboards, but I've always got that. So I tend to buy things when they're on sale, like soup or whatever, right? Yeah, I've covered most of the stuff I wanted to cover. One of the main points was this whole thing about the government just wants to save Granny. Okay, just like give that up. The government does not want to save Granny. The government doesn't give a rat's behind about Granny. And if they're telling you that they just want to save these elderly and immunocompromised people, if that's what they're telling you, they're lying. Okay, that's your clue that they're lying to you. They don't care. They put MAID in place to get rid of those people. So they're pulling a fast one on you. It was a real ordeal. People talk about the dangers of gun ownership and how any nut apparently can go out and get a gun. It took me quite a while to get my gun, my PAL, and my right to it's a purchase and acquisition license, I believe it's what it is. It's been a while since I got it, but it must have been like a 3 to 6 month process that I went through to qualify to be a gun owner. I should say that I'm a pacifist. Okay, so I don't really believe in violence. For most of my life, I've been an ethical vegetarian because I'm such a sort of pacifist in that regard. However, just like Gandhi, I am of the opinion that lethal force is justified to defend yourself, right? So I'm not so pacifist that I'll just let somebody come in and kill me. Bear spray is good, but it has its limits. I think it was Adam who was talking about that mosh guy, and didn't they spray that mosh guy with all kinds of bear spray and it didn't even faze him? We've seen this in police incidents too, that people have been sprayed and just keep on coming. Metallica, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, yeah. I was going to post a song by a band called Two that Rob Halford of Judas Priest was in, called Leave Me Alone. Used to be one of my favorite metal songs. I was a big Judas Priest fan too. I saw Judas Priest in concert for their Turbo Tour. I think it was 1982, and it was one of the most amazing concerts I ever saw. Home defense things, you know. Challenge the test, eh? Sophie, where are you? New Zealand? I think they took away all gun ownership rights in New Zealand, kind of like the UK, right? Yeah, wasn't Mosh an intelligence agent of some sort? It turned out to be an intelligence agent, worked for the Mossad or somebody like that. Israel. Doesn't everybody own guns in Israel? I know there's like mandatory military service or something in Israel, isn't there? Anyway, we're coming up on the 2-hour mark. Yeah, look it up. I think he was, they determined he was a Mossad agent or something. If I remember correctly, he was whisked off to Israel and never seen again. Something like that. Yeah, the Baxter flu, where they put the live bird flu virus into the vaccines. And were it not for an accident where, I forget where it was it Switzerland? I think in Switzerland, they did some tests, some random tests of the vaccine on ferrets or something, and all the ferrets died. And had they not done this random test, all of these millions and millions of vaccination shots would have been shipped out with live bird flu, and people would have been, dropping like flies all over the world. So that's your pharmaceutical industry. And what did they say? They said, oops, our bad. We don't know how that nasty old virus got in there. Just, oops, oops daisy. For civilians, gun permits are severely restricted. Yeah, all I know about Israel was the mandatory military service. I find that interesting because I know Ben Shapiro is this rabid pro-war guy, right? And the thing about him is that he avoided military service, so it's what we call a chicken hawk. But most people in Israel have, I think they still have mandatory military service there, don't they? Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know what mandatory military service does to the collective psyche of a nation. It's an interesting idea. I think that's all I have to say. I think people should be aware of the Event 201, though. If you want to do some research on your own time, you should go the Libertarian Party. Oh, Libertarian. Well, then you might get along with Adam. But people should go check out, I'll show you here. There it is, Event 201. Event 201. That is something you should go check out for yourself, because that was like an experiment that was conducted to simulate basically what's happening here, but before what is happening now with coronavirus. It was a simulated thing. So it's kind of interesting that they were simulating these things ahead of time as if they were preparing for something. Do I ever watch Laura Lynn on YouTube? To be quite honest, I have trouble watching Laura Lynn because she's a televangelist at heart, and she's not always honest. She frequently, deliberately pushes buttons using deception, and that disturbs me. So I have trouble with Laura Lynn. I can kind of tolerate her when we're together in person, but I have a hard time watching her broadcast because I just I know Laura Lynn, and I just don't like her methodology, the way she approaches things. It's not my style. Anarchist, right? Well, pretty close. Libertarians are the worst. Really? Stop sharing that. But everyone go check out that event 201 sometimes if you want an eye-opener. Well, yeah. No, we'll disagree on some things there, Adam. So, for instance, I believe that the pharmaceutical industry, if we're going to exist in a capitalist economy as we are now, unless we nationalize the pharmaceutical complex, it will kill us, or it will enslave us, or it will do both in either order. Like they're first enslave us, then kill us. They've proven over and over again that they are dangerous to national security. So if you believe, for instance, in having a military, and you believe that the military should be controlled by the state because it's too important to the safety and well-being of the citizens, I would make the exact same argument for the pharmaceutical complex. That it's too important to the health and safety of the nation to leave the pharmaceutical complex in private hands anymore. That's my opinion. It's also an opinion that might get me dropped in the Fraser River, but it's still my opinion. Okay, well, it's a really dumb ideology and statism at its core. This is what Adam says, okay? So what I would say to Adam is I would say, okay, Adam, you need to learn what Robert Anton Wilson called E prime. E prime, not English, but E prime. Okay, so it's really dumb ideology. So what Robert Anton Wilson would insist would be to rephrase that as, to me, it seems like a really dumb ideology, or it's a really dumb ideology to me, right? To make that qualifier, right? Because not only are people sometimes wrong, but people sometimes change their minds. So you might believe one thing one day, and then 10 years down the line, believe something totally different. So E prime is a good way to speak about things. And I can, sometimes I slip up myself, though. Well, that's an interesting thing. So we talk about money. So theoretically, we don't need any taxation. The government could just create money as they need it to do things. If you want to build a road, they could create money to create a road. They don't need to tax citizens for that. Just create money as you need it. So I don't know that I think or would argue that we need taxation. I would argue that the pharmaceutical industry needs to be nationalized. Yeah, well, I mean, there's something to be said for the rule of law. And the rule of law requires some intervention in the freedom of other people. So you got to have I think you got to have a government. No government is bad news. And then you just have to sort of decide, okay, so what powers do you want to give that government? And things like that. So we give the government the power to protect the sovereignty and safety of the nation with a military, more effectively in the United States than in Canada, arguably. But theoretically, we have that power given to the government because it's in our interest so that we don't become victims of the Huns or the Mongolian hordes or whatever, right? So that's something we turn over to the state typically. You could say, well, a well-armed militia might be able to handle it, but yeah, I don't know. And again, the same thing to me applies with the pharmaceutical industry. I believe that the pharmaceutical industry has become one of the major threats to national security in almost every nation now. They've become a threat to the health and well-being of everybody, including and perhaps especially our children. Well, okay, how do you nationalize something that's already global? You can't nationalize globally unless it's done globally, but you can nationalize things within your own country, right? So for a long time, this is beginning to change. Healthcare is nationalized in Canada, but it wasn't nationalized everywhere. So that's an internal thing. So I would, it doesn't, like the thing, what are you going to do? You're going to let the pharmaceutical industry continue to run amok? You see what they're doing with our children, right? Turning them into lifelong pharmaceutical customers and sterilizing them. Right? We've got a profit motive now on disease. So this new coronavirus, whether it is or is not a designer virus, it can make, as my calculation indicated there, probably in the neighborhood of $8 billion in sales if they come up with a vaccine for that. So the temptation for a for-profit industry would be to actually put your biologists and your epidemiologists to work in the laboratory to create viruses that you could have a pre-made solution for, so you could make billions, right? So this is what I mean. Just the temptation there is dangerous to everybody. So that's why we need to sort of consider whether or not the for-profit motive is a good thing in the pharmaceutical industry. No government. There's always been some sort of government. Sure. Yeah, I mean, going into tribes even have governmental establishments. This is true. Problem is that is society, this mega society, right? Fractionalized into small groups. As society grows, you need bigger and bigger government to deal with bigger and bigger society if you want to have any sort of control of it. And like I say, run amok. Like if you took down all of the government controls and laws in Canada, I don't think you'd like the result. Sure, that's an argument. I'm not sure that it's a distinction with a significant difference, though, in terms of application. Well, that is a very long debate there, Adam. I think one has to, from my perspective, it's always been a question of, and this is with George Orwell too. So one of my great intellectual mentors, George Orwell, and Noam Chomsky as well, said that thinking, caring beings had to think beyond themselves and ask if we think it is right and just and a sign of being sort of a higher human being to recognize that perhaps we might realize that collectively we have the power to solve problems that individually we could not. And there's a lot of hunger and problems that we can't solve. So social programs in Canada emerged out of the social gospel movements that came up through the 20s and 30s and 40s in Canada, and figures like Tommy Douglas. What happened there was that they had determined that philanthropy and just the charity of people was not enough to deal with the mass poverty in society. So that's when they began arguing for social programs to try to deal with this mass poverty. I mean, you can shrug your shoulders and say, okay, well, let's just let everybody starve who isn't as fortunate as me. But I'm not sure that's something that I agree with. Now, I do believe in democracy, so I believe that people should be able to vote and stuff like that. And if my ideas don't prevail, well, they don't prevail. I don't know. Sure they don't. But the concern is, so the gun laws, I would say, maybe we don't need gun laws. But we do need laws to control people with guns. So you don't want to turn loose everybody. Well, I mean, I guess you could. There's been arguments that if everybody had a gun, people would be better behaved. Maybe. But the point is, people will use guns to steal other people's property or violate the rights of other people. And that's where you want government involved to try to deal with these infractions, because they will happen without a government to police them. Okay, so right away, though, Adam, you go straight for the killer worst social program imaginable, right? We used to have much better healthcare than we do now. It's been deliberately destroyed, I would argue, through the influence of private healthcare organizations in the United States applying pressure to Canada over the decades. So now we have a broken healthcare system that's been deliberately broken, in my opinion, but it used to function very well. Same thing with our social programs to deal with poverty. It used to function very well. Now it's been deliberately disabled. So those are examples of, in my opinion, good things. So when somebody loses their job, right, or somebody has some sort of issue where they can't work for whatever reason, a compassionate society comes in and says, okay, listen, we're not going to let you starve to death. Okay, I think that is the compassionate and right thing to do. And I would hope that people can sort of come together collectively and agree that that's what we want to do. Now, I would never, like, I'm not a totalitarian, so it's not something that I would say you need to force on people, but I would hope it would be something that we could collectively agree to in a democratic kind of a sense. How about that? Sure, they also do. I am not an advocate for gun laws. I am an advocate for laws that prevent people from using guns to do harmful things, as I am an advocate for laws that prevent people from doing harmful things with butter knives. Same thing. Yeah, so, but I mean, like, then what's the solution, though, Adam? You just let people starve? That's the solution? Doesn't seem like a solution to me. Yeah, I don't have any problem with gun ownership. I'm a gun owner myself. I had to go through a huge ordeal to become a gun owner. So I don't have a problem with people owning guns. I'm not an anti-gun person. But I do believe we need laws on the books to prevent people from doing bad things with guns, right? So if somebody uses a gun for a crime, to rob somebody, yes, we need laws on the book and a government to enforce those laws. Right. Now, this is because I would say that people got lazy in our society and have allowed scum to rule. So basically, I've been an advocate for some time that our system needs to be reworked. Okay, so we need to come up with some sort of new system that will keep these jackals out of the corridors of power. Some sort of new system to deal with that. What that solution looks like, I don't know. I mean, I've got ideas, but I'm not going to get into those. But currently our system is rotten. But I mean, the solution is not getting rid of all systems and descending into anarchy, in my opinion. In my opinion, that's E prime, right? Maybe it is a solution. I don't know. I'll make you prime minister. He'll fix everything for me. Adam, I get just a little fearful. Yeah, so that's an argument here from Sophie, is that people naturally organize, and this is true. So you go back as far as you want in human history, people organize and come up with leadership, right? You will not find an Amazonian tribe, right, that doesn't have a leadership structure, right? So there are leadership structures everywhere. Storm the Bastille. Yes, we need a storming of the Bastille again. I really think that our system is so corrupt right now. Like what we're seeing going on right now is an indication of a seriously failed system. And I know Carrie Simpson has suggested from time to time that we need a bloody revolution. She was quoting somebody who wrote back in the 90s or something, or the early 2000s, who said the only solution to our problems was a bloody revolution. And there's an argument to be made there. It might take something like a bloody revolution to get these jackals out of power. I'm not advocating a bloody revolution. I'm just saying that that might be, that scale of response might be the only thing to deal with what's going on right now. A solution requires public execution of the jackals. Okay, so yeah, I've said that what's going on right now here is we seem to have our government doing everything in its power to cause chaos in society and perhaps trigger a financial crash in our society. We don't see reason leading anybody in government anywhere, and that's any government, whether you're talking about the government of Ontario or the government of Canada, okay, whether you're talking about conservative or liberal, they are all doing the same thing. They're making decisions that are pointing us towards economic chaos and perhaps depression. And if our establishment is that corrupt, where there's no voices out there calling for calm and trying to create a calm situation, but are instead leading us towards disaster, I would argue that these people are guilty of treason. Right. So, I mean, there's a certain, what was it? Was it Benjamin Franklin? Oh, no, it was Thomas Jefferson who said that occasionally democracy has to be, the soil of democracy needs to be watered with the blood of patriots or something. So just an idea that every now and then things need to be turned over by revolution, and there's an argument to be made there. Again, I'm not going to go on social media and argue for revolution. That would be a very bad idea. But there is a wisdom there in terms of when a system gets so corrupt, how do you deal with that system? How do you get a totally corrupt system out of power? It would seem that the only way to do that is the way that it's always been done in history. Now, the fact that doing that type of sort of revolutionary thing that you see so often in history, the fact that it always goes back may just sort of point to the fact that history is cyclical. It's okay, maybe it will just go back, but erasing government completely, I don't think is the answer. But there may be a cyclical kind of thing there in history where things need to be turned over once in a while. Particularly, all the jackals at the top of our society every now and then need to be chased out or charged with treason or whatever, right? They've already come for the TP. It was funny because I was in the grocery store and there were these people buying all this toilet paper, and I was looking at these people with all this toilet paper, and then I look at my buggy, and I've got, because I'm a big fruit eater, I have all these bags of frozen fruit and stuff, and I look back at theirs and I'm like, okay, toilet paper, right? I'll just go home with my frozen fruit. Well, it's not only a right there, Gordon. I would say with the long view of history, and of course one of my degrees is in history, so I, as a historian, would say that it's part of the natural process of history to have revolutions from time to time, and it could be the reason we have such corruption in society today is that we're overdue for our revolution, our regularly scheduled revolution. Order out of chaos, yes. And so what they want is more and more order, more and more control. They want totalitarianism. So back in 1948, George Orwell was warning that the trend in society was towards global fascism. Everybody's worried about communism. It's not communism that's coming for you. You look who's driving all of this insanity. It's corporate financial elite. These are not communists. They are fascists. And this is what Orwell warned about. He said there is going to be a move, and unless it gets checked, you're going to see the emergence of global fascism eventually. And I think that's what we're seeing. Fascism in the totalitarian sense, right? Just forget about all of the, whether you're anti-Jewish or whatever, that's not the it was like an addition to fascism, a German addition, like being anti-Jewish is not a fascist part of the fascist ideology. It's an aside. So fascism itself is about a merger of corporate and state power, and that's what we're seeing happening globally. I would agree that history seems to suggest that that is the only way, and that the problem is that as time moves on, the methods of control by the government become stronger and stronger, so revolution becomes more and more difficult. Yeah, he's not even a good actor. Trudeau's an actor, and he's not even a good actor. Yeah, always somebody will save us, right? This is one of the things that drives me crazy. I had this problem with the People's Party of Canada people too, who were saying that Bernier is going to be our great savior, and I was like, Maxime Bernier, the former Minister of Trade and Foreign Affairs, that guy, the guy who was connected to the wealthiest family in Canada, the Desmarais family, this guy is a man of the people who's going to save us all? Are you serious? You're joking me, right? But no, people think that he's going to save us. There's always somebody thinking that somebody in the political establishment is going to save us, and I don't think that's the answer. I think we are at a state or at a point in history where the only solution is to purge the system and to, revise the system in a way better designed to keep scum out. Will that last over the long time? Maybe not, probably not, because power attracts sociopaths, and that will never change. So it's one of these, what is it? The price of freedom is eternal vigilance, something to that effect, right? So that's the same thing. Right. Well, so people talk to me about, that it's the evil left. And I say it's not the evil left, because whether you're talking about the left or the right, you've got the left establishment and you've got the right establishment. The thing that binds them together is establishment. So they're ultimately in the same golf cart at the country club, right? So they have interlocking interests. I think it was Ishmael Reed, the writer Ishmael Reed, who said the history of the world is the history of the war between secret societies or secret factions. And so at the top of society, there are these factional battles that will take place. But neither one of them is going to, get rid of the goose that lays the golden egg, so the methodologies of control. And so this is why one of my things in my upcoming talk tour was to focus more and more on the methodologies of control, okay? Because who the individual leaders are, whether they're left or right, is immaterial. It's the mechanisms of controlling the masses that people need to be alerted to and come to understand how they operate. And the primary one today is the methodologies of controlling the mind. And that's the media, and that's the internet, and all of these things need to be exposed so people understand how they are controlled. Mm-hmm. The quarantine. It's crazy. I'm sort of in waiting here. I don't know what's happening. At my place, they've cut back hours and laid off all kinds of people temporarily until the pandemic is gone. Now, that could be a long time. So if the BC Supreme Court and Court of Appeal is an indication, they're anticipating the problem will continue to the end of May. So that's, a couple of full months and more away. That could cause a massive amount of financial damage if that's what happens. Imagine people who are, either unemployed during that time or have their income, say, cut in half during that time. And people say, well, there's employment insurance. But from what I understand, at last check, it was 55% of your regular wage that you get from employment insurance. So either any way you spell it, you're getting hacked and slashed. And some people won't survive that. People won't be able to pay their rent. People won't be able to pay their mortgages. Small businesses will collapse. And an intelligent, responsible government would realize that and say, listen, all this financial devastation is not worth, like a disastrous reaction to something that's killed 9 people. Anyway, I think I'm done. I've said my piece. No doubt lost lots of followers again. I do that every so often. I've done that, I don't know, 3, maybe 4 times where I've halved my followers by pissing everybody off by being consistent usually. And always sort of sticking to my guns on what I think is true and correct. So I may have lost some more followers on this virus pandemic panic. Anyway, so I'm going to sign off for now. Thanks, everybody. I hope my short skirt didn't offend anybody, but like I say, I was going for all leather, and it was the only leather skirt that I have, and I should probably retire it and find a longer one. Bye, all. I'll just answer this last question. What was it here? Halt paper money coming out of the bank machine. That was a real serious concern. Just imagine, so many people I hardly ever use cash anymore. If the bank shut down my access to my money in the bank, then we'd really have chaos. Imagine if the bank stopped dispensing funds through a debit or whatever, and then you'd really have trouble. But, yeah. Yeah, peace out. Peace out, everybody. Talk to you later.